So peace is something very powerful and very important, and it's in the very nature and present within each one of us. That's part of what we're talking about today. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about emotions. As you know, this entire month we've been looking at emotions, and we've been looking at them, sort of splitting them apart. I'm not sure you can, but we're doing it for the sake of discussion. And this week we're looking at anger. Not people's favorite feeling, and yet one we all participate in quite frequently, I suspect. You know, there are two feelings that really trigger and get us moving in terms of our fight, flight, freeze response. That's that physical response within us that we have no control over. It just goes. It's just automatic. It goes all the way back to our millions of years of evolution, where we have learned, in order to survive, to take quick action. And those two feelings are fear and anger. We talked about fear a couple of weeks ago. Today, we're going to talk a little more about anger. One of the things that happens with that fight, flight, freeze response, and I'm here lately, there's been more study and there's a whole bunch more of them, but those are the three I'm most familiar with. And that's to get in there and fight, or to run. And the freeze one is kind of fun. It's what possums do. If you've ever been around a possum, or you scare them and they'll fall over dead and you think you've killed them, and you haven't. They just freeze. I think goats do that too, to some extent. And you know, they have no control over that. They don't sit down and think, well, let's see, should I freeze this time? No, they just do it. And the same thing happens within us and in our human physical experiences of life, where these automatic systems are built in. We've developed them over, like I said, a very long time, and they kick in. You know, when you hit the anger, what happens? You know what happens. All of the enzymes kick in appropriately for that one moment, where suddenly, instead of running, you may have the anger to fight, or where your heart races, it speeds up. All of the blood begins to move. Instead of going inward to your vital organs, it comes out and concentrates more in your arms and legs and those parts of your body that allow you to be mobile and allow you to move and allow you to get going and do things. And then the blood shifts back to the inner organs and the inner parts of us, where there is a greater calm and where they still need to be nurtured in between. That's why we can do these major things with adrenaline, where you hear about people picking up cars and doing all sorts of things because of the energy that kicks in of anger. What I'd suggest to you today is that anger, while it gets lots of bum raps and it has lots of negative ideas around it and negative experiences connected to it, is really just an energy. It's like all of the other emotions. It's an emotional energy that allows you to perhaps do what you couldn't do. It motivates you to move faster. It motivates you to say what you need to say. When you've been, you know how that goes. You're in a relationship and you haven't said anything. You kind of put up with stuff and you put up with stuff and put up with stuff and put up with stuff. And then suddenly the anger kicks in and you speak. It may not be pleasant the way you do it. It may not be helpful the way you do it, but at least there's some relief because you've got the words out. See, I think anger does that. I think anger gives us the energy and power to take care of what we need to take care of. And it does it in a way that can be very helpful and very useful, but it can also get in the way. It can also be a very problematic kind of thing, especially if you have never learned appropriate ways to handle your anger or to express your anger. And if you've had experiences where your anger was shut off or shut down, or you were shamed for it, then you reach that place in adulthood where the anger may be there and it may be pumping all the blood out to your muscles, and it may be having you ready to fight or fly or flee. Fly. Yeah. But it doesn't get any expression, so it just stays bottled up. We know that one of the best ways to help energy and to help emotion move through us is our breath, is breathing. breathing, breathing, breathing. And what do you do when you get mad? You hold your breath. Often, we shut it down. And our anger just emotes and it comes up, and other people feel it, whether we are saying it out loud or expressing it or not. It's there and they notice it. I thought it was a compliment back when I was in my 40s and was doing the doctorate at Emory. And I really thought, I got elected to be on the academic committee as the student representative to the doctoral program there. And I was so pleased with myself. Went to the first meeting. I came back with a long report about what all been going on. And one of my friends finally told me, he said, well, you know why we elected you to that position, right? It's because you're hypervigilant. You are always watching for the next thing that's going to happen so that you can watch out and be sure where everybody's safe and you're safe and nobody does something they shouldn't. And you blah, 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 blah. Which is another way that anger that is buried in us and keeps churning becomes really strong and important. And it served me well for a long time, but then finally it's like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being the hypervigilant, angry one. So I begin to do work to get rid of it and to release it. The other thing that's happening to all of us right now, talk about the eye of the storm, is that we live in a world of social media. I mean, I walk around with my cell phone in my hand, especially down here in Mexico, because I'm using Google Translator to talk to people and finding that to be a wonderful gift. But at the same time, while that is there are also all of these nudges, these little invitations from YouTube and Google and all these other places that are social media. And the two things, a word you never heard until a few years ago is clickbait. Clickbait. Who ever heard of clickbait? That's the weirdest thing in the world. I know about fish bait. I know about baiting people to get them to egg them on. But clickbait. Well, clickbait, as you know very well, is that which will get you to click on something so that you look at it as a video or a voicemail or YouTube or anything or all over the place. Every kind of communication device and platform has clickbait, where there's a big phrase in order to get you to look at it. And what we know from studying is that, and looking at all this, is that the two things that will get the strongest response are fear and anger. So much of what we're bombarded with now, invited in to watch and participate in, are fear and anger. Take a look at this. You might be interested in this. I got really upset last night because I saw a quick message that said someone had died, and I was like, oh my gosh, what? But then when I looked at it more closely, it turned out they're not dead, but one of their cousins died. But the headline said they had died. Clickbait. It immediately touched my fear that, oh my gosh, they're not with us anymore. And I went right to it. So we are constantly being bombarded with that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it is something really important, though, that we modern humans living in time and space on this planet have got to deal with. And we have to find ways to deal with it and to be in it. See, we are more than physical beings. And there is more to anger than what there appears to be. Our message today, our affirmation today, says this: the center of anger, there is calm. Yeah, right, huh? See, what we know is that peace or calm is a natural given part of our consciousness. It's not something we have to create. It's not something we have to make up or manufacture in any way. It is a natural part of who we are, and it's always present. It's always within us. It's always here. Even in our moments of greatest anger, rage, whatever. And what our teaching is all about, and what we are inviting you to, as part of this, is working to learn to activate that peace, regardless of what's going on around you, regardless of what's happening, and regardless of how sad or angry or afraid you may be. See, this teaching is all about living from the inside out rather than the outside in. Living from the outside in means I'm always reacting to what they say or they're doing, or somebody out there is doing something. And so I react to it and I act as if that's the source of my power, is what's out there. Whereas living from the inside out is starting from in here and saying, oh, look, that's what's happening out there. I'm going to choose to respond to it, not react to it. I'm going to choose a different way to be, a different way to respond. You know, one of the things about strong emotions like anger and fear is that they can override our thinking. That's part of the point of the enzymes that kick off in our bodies when we go into a strong anger reaction, is it shuts off our thinking brain. And because it's preparing us to do what we need to do to survive. And we have to learn to take a breath. We have to find these waves of peace within us that are there underneath that storm of chaos, of anger, of fear, of frustration, and of all of that. And Norma spoke to it, and it's absolutely right. And it's those moments where you find interrupting strategies, where you have a strategy that allows you just to take a breath. When I was a kid growing up, people were saying, you have to learn to count to 10 before you speak. Engage your brain before your tongue. Before you put your mouth in gear. And you do that by taking a breath, by counting to 10, by giving yourself time before you react, to allow your mind to kick in and allow you to respond and choose how to respond. And we all have varying degrees of that. One of my friends is listening to this today. I didn't do that very well yesterday. I reacted. I didn't take a breath and respond to what was simply an effort to give me help and to offer a suggestion of help. I reacted. I went into fight, flight. I didn't want it, didn't like it. And kind of messed up the rest of the evening, although fortunately there was forgiveness there, I think. I know. So we do interrupting strategies. We breathe. Take a focus. Take a moment and remember who you are. I am a divine expression of the infinite. I am life expressing in a beautiful, wonderful way. Helen Street was one of my favorite ministers from a previous era, and often spoke in Atlanta. I also saw her speaking all around, but one of my favorite things that she would do is she'd say, you know, when you encounter something like this that's just thrown you off or you don't know what's going on, just stomp your foot and say, I demand, there's good here and I demand to see it. Now, Emma Curtis Hopkins started that, but she absolutely took it to the biggest, loudest, greatest way, because she had special names for her, the infinite, for her that made sense. It worked. Big Sweetie. The Cosmic Sugar Daddy was one of them. Whatever images of the infinite, whatever images of this power work for you that can help you come back to your center, come back to that place where there may be calm, where there is peace, where peace can be awakened and activated, and you can make a choice about where you want to go and how you want to be. See, that moment of peace, that allows us to choose how we're going to respond rather than just be caught up in it. I love the Old Testament phrase, Old Testament Jewish scripture. Some trust in horses, some trust in chariots. As for me and my house, we will trust the law. The translation of Lord, we will trust the Lord. We will trust the infinite power within us, within life, to be that source of power and place. for good and for all good. Rather than trusting external things to fix things for us, we dive in to what's inside. Emma Curtis Hopkins is one of the master teachers of this. She was the teacher who taught Ernest Holmes, among many others. She said, as you choose, you experience great peace. There is no turmoil in spirit. If there is turmoil in your life, it's a signal that you've tried to believe in two things. That's interesting. Try to believe in two things. I can believe that I live in a spiritual universe that is all good and that brings my life into fullness and to greatness and to goodness. And then, as happened today, this morning, I woke up to no water in the apartment. No shower. Aren't you glad we're on the internet? None of that other kind of immediate ease that comes with what I've become very accustomed to, which is to turn the spigot and water pours out. Now, it'll be fixed in a little bit. But for that moment, I wasn't feeling my good. I was feeling my desire for a shower. And so for a moment, there was turmoil. But it went away quickly because I realized I'm fine. You know, a few years ago, very few years ago, in the scheme of things, there was no showers every day. If you got a bath once a month, you were doing well. So you let go of this idea of two things. I can both be held back or interfered with, and I live in a user-friendly universe. So you let go of the two-ness and come back to the oneness. And this is a teaching about oneness. Emma said it in the quote you just saw on the screen. I don't believe in a mix of good and evil. I believe in only omnipresent good. Omnipresent means everywhere present. It can never not be there. Yeah. See, and only good, therefore, rules in and with my life. Those are big, loud statements when you think about it. Only good rules in my life. I only believe in good. Well, what about all the terrible things that are going on out there in the world? Well, if you pay close attention to all of them, you can see where it's different people, different systems, different organizational ways of thinking and doing things, simply believing that their good is the best good and not necessarily mixing and matching. I mean, there are a whole lot of ways that we can study and look at those things, and that's what this teaching does. We look at all kinds of discordant issues, and we talk about them, and we bring them forward. And as we do that, it's to an end of finding the peace, finding the unity, finding the oneness, finding the truth in those. And we get far more interested in the oneness of peace, of love, of the choice for all of those than we do in what's wrong and how to articulate and pull that apart. And while those things are important and we pay attention to them and we learn from them, there is a great power in not letting them dominate everything. You know what I'm talking about. Certain religious groups believe far more in what's wrong with the world than what's right with the world. We're all about what's right with the world, what's right with your world, what can be right with your world, and finding those keys, those clues to shifting out of turmoil, out of the storm, to perpetually stepping into the eye of the storm, into that quiet, peaceful place. I grew up in Florida. Hurricanes were something I experienced several times in my childhood, in my young adulthood. And I remember asking my mother once, whenever we were going through one of those, so now that we're in the eye of the hurricane and it's very calm and quiet, why don't we just jump in the car and just drive along with it, and we'll stay in it? And she laughed, of course. Well, we're not real sure where it's going or where it's going to be next. And it actually was headed out towards the Gulf, so we would have to drive off into the water in order to stay in it. And eventually, like it or not, we'd get the other side of the storm. Whereas the truth is, within each of us, there is an I. There is an I, both the letter I, the I am, the power that God is within each of us, that can always walk us through whatever the winds are, whatever the storm, whatever the turmoil. You know, we talk about principle, we talk about what this power is and how it works. And the idea here is that it is one power, not two. And it's a power for good. One of my favorite phrases is that there's a power for good in the universe and you can use it. I can use it. I can use it by believing in it. See, that's how we shift it. We shift out of this belief that the apparent dualities all around us, the apparent turmoil of two different things and two different belief systems and two different powers and two different conflicting, whatever the conflict is, that is the ultimate truth, which is why we don't talk about evil being a power. Evil is just a misunderstanding and misexpression of the use of good and the way to use it. So we live in a universe of oneness. It is everywhere present all the time. That's the omnipresence of peace. And it responds to us according to our beliefs. So if you believe you live in this powerful place where peace prevails, where good is your expression, wow, that's what will be your experience. I've had some wonderful experiences that's coming down here because I absolutely believed that this journey, this trip was a bit of a pilgrimage for my own deeper expression and deeper learning. And I have had amazing exchanges with various people since I left Atlanta and since I got down here. Oh, well, not only since I did, but on my way down. Some wonderful opportunities just to speak my truth and to hear some other people's ideas and really listen deeply. See, the oneness that we are all about expressing is all about the goodness of life. And the question, of course, is how much can I have of that goodness? Well, you can have as much as you can believe in, as much as you can embrace and embrace in consciousness, embrace in belief systems, not embrace with your hands getting and grabbing, but embrace by believing in it. You know, there's as much life, as much love, as much peace, as much light, as much joy, as much beauty, as much power. Yeah. As much as you can believe in is available to you. Our center is all about supporting one another in increasing that belief, increasing that faith, and coming to a place where we are really helping one another in getting to that space, not by avoiding anything out there or trying to pretend things aren't real. That's not what we're about, but we look at every reality through the lens and through the eyes of oneness and say, how is this something? There's good here and I demand to see it. So I want to invite you to join us. Join us on these broadcasts. Join us in the classes that we'll be offering soon. Join us in whatever way makes sense to you to become a part of our community. Because the door is open and you're invited to come and be part of this. And I close with the opening phrase, the opening poem from our Science of Mind textbook, which says, "Peace unto thee, stranger. Enter and be not afraid. There is room in my house for all. Sit, rest, and refresh your soul." By our founder, Ernest Holmes. You deserve that because you're wonderful. So am I, and so it is. Thank you.